For those building a fly rod, here's how to assemble your handle section. This is Rod Building 101. Let's go over what you will need to complete your handle section. First, we've got masking tape, mixing sticks, 2-part paste epoxy, tape reamer, China marker, a winding check, your cork handle, aluminum fly reel seat, and the butt section of your 4-piece fly rod blank. Let's lay out the parts you will need on your handle section, and we're going to create a bit of a roadmap to guide us along the way as we install each part. First, we have an aluminum fly seat. This comes with a aluminum butt cap that fits right into the back side of the reel seat. I like to secure this with a piece of tape because otherwise you can drop it and it'll end up under your rod building bench. So I just take a piece of tape and I secure it there. Now I take the reel seat and I take the butt section of the rod blank. You know it's the butt section of the rod blank because it is the largest end, and you have the sticker that indicates which fly blank you have. Take your reel seat with the thread side down because this is an up-locking reel seat. I set the reel seat down on the table, and then I insert the rod blank into the reel seat and let it bottom out. So now the butt of the rod blank is touching that aluminum cap that I taped off. Then I take my China marker and I mark the top of the reel seat here onto the rod blank. So I'm actually marking onto the rod blank where the top of the reel seat is. This will give me a roadmap to add in tape arbors, and then we'll dry fit the reel seat and set the cork grip here in the next step. So now we're going to add tape arbors. The tape arbor is just a masking tape that is stacked on top of itself to actually enlarge the outside diameter of the rod blank that allows the reel seat to fit snugly and centered on the rod blank. We do have to keep in mind the aluminum butt cap in the back of the seat. So we have the first mark here that is the top of the reel seat, and then the aluminum butt cap actually will hold us back a little on the butt section. So I try to start about a 1/2 inch up from the butt and about a 1/2 inch down from this mark. We will then add 3 equally spaced tape arbors, and that will keep the reel seat centered while it's being glued and cured. Now that we have the 3 tape arbors here on the butt section of our fly rod blank, I'm going to check it with the reel seat. It's going to slide on, and as before, I have mentioned when you have a properly dry fitted reel seat or grip over tape arbors, the weight of the reel seat should not fall off. It shouldn't be so tight that you can't get it over the tape arbors, but it also shouldn't be so loose that it should just fall off. So that's a great fit on the tape arbors. And now we're going to move to checking the handle section, which is just the grip, the foregrip. This is a reverse half wells. So now that we have the reel seat properly seated, we're going to move on to the cork grip. When I dry fit the reverse half wells cork grip onto this blank, I'm going to leave the reel seat dry fitted. This is not glued yet, so we're going to leave it on the rod blank while we check the cork. Now, most of the time, you're going to have to, when you slide this on, it's going to come down here and stop. So this is nice and snug, but it's not where it needs to be. So, of course, Mudhole has made it very easy. We're just going to slide this cork off, and we're actually going to use the size small tape reamer that comes in the kit. Now, You see the section here that doesn't have any grit on it? That's where you're going to hold it. You're going to use this section. It is tapered, so it goes from small and gets a little bigger. And we're going to insert it into the cork grip, and we're just going to remove material. Now, as we're working the tape reamer in and out of the cork grip, be sure to spin the cork grip. So work the tape reamer in and out and spin it, work it in and out, spin it. And what that's going to do is you won't be creating an oblong hole inside of this cork grip. It needs to stay as round and as centered as possible, and just go a little at a time. So we'll take this, and I try to work off the workbench here so we're not creating a lot of dust, but we'll work the cork here. You can see I'm removing some material, right? We always clean it out, set the reamer aside, and now we're going to check it here and see that that works. So you really don't have to remove that much material. Do a little at a time and check it. Do a little at a time and check it. So now this cork grip fits nicely, and it is going to slide over the top of this reel seat. This is called an inletted seat. So you have an inletted part of this grip. They're going to meet, and then the reel seat slides into it just like that. You don't need any more arbors or anything. Now that we have the grip nice and dry fitted, the reel seat is completely dry fitted. We're going to move right to mixing up our two-part epoxy and gluing up the reel seat first. Now it's time to mix your two-part paste epoxy. I've got some spooned out here on just a cut piece of cardboard, and I'm going to use the mixing stick, and we're going to combine them. These do not have to be exact mixture 50-50. Get it as close as you can. You can eyeball it. There's no need to weigh it or use your teaspoons. Just get it close. And then we're going to mix it for a little bit and make sure it kind of transitions into a fully mixed, smooth, one color. And then we will be ready to move it to our rod blank. When it comes to epoxying the reel seat and cork grip on our fly rod blank, we already have applied our tape arbors, we've dry fitted everything, and we're ready to go. I personally like to start with the reel seat first. As I have mentioned previously, we are going to cover the tape arbors and all around them. We do not have to fill this cavity just slap full with epoxy. There's not a whole lot of space in there in the first place because the diameter of the rod blank is actually pretty close to the inside diameter of the reel seat. So we're pretty good there, and we don't want to create too much excess epoxy. So we're going to pull a little epoxy off here, and then we're going to add the reel seat. So I personally like to add the reel seat from the bottom up. If you want to slide the reel seat down, I suggest to tape and protect your thread because you're going to have to remove the butt cap, slide it down, not get any epoxy in the threads, but we're going to avoid all of that, and we're going to go from the bottom up. So as we go from the bottom up, we're going to twist as we insert the rod blank. And remember, we're already going to need epoxy on this end of the reel seat anyway, so we don't have to worry too much about cleaning this and getting it spotless because we're going to use it for the grip. I do always suggest having multiple clean mixing sticks kind of at hand here. So the rod blank is all the way through and bottomed out here onto the aluminum cap. I'm going to scrape the epoxy down off of this reel seat, and then we're going to use this for the cork grip. I do like to double check this aluminum cap before I move on. So I will pull the tape off, and I will pull off the aluminum cap. The reason for this is I'm going to add just a little bit of epoxy down here on the end. All that does is just give me a little bit of assurance that we have good coverage and we don't need to add a ton. We're just going to add a little in here, and this helps keep the mess to a minimum. So I'm going to take and I'm going to reattach the aluminum cap. Going to give it a little half turn, and then I'm going to add the tape back. Now you do need to make sure that when you put this back on, that the reel seat is not sliding up the blank, okay? And it slides away from your aluminum cap. I'm holding the cap and putting the tape back on secure. Now we know there is plenty of epoxy on this end of the reel seat, and there's plenty of epoxy throughout the reel seat when we slid it on. Now we are going to add epoxy this way. We've already dry fitted the grip, so we know it slides down. I'm going to work the epoxy up the rod blank. Now, some of you might think, well, how much epoxy do I use? I actually will add slightly more epoxy when I mount cork grips than when I do EVA grips. And the reason for that is when you ream out the inside of a cork grip, or just cork in general, it has voids in it. It's a natural material. So there are voids inside of here. I want to make sure that this epoxy gets completely coated inside of the cork grip. Now, if you notice, it's about the exact length. I kind of just guessed, to be honest with you, because we don't have to worry so much about marking where the grip will fall, because it's just going to slide down right onto the reel seat. The reel seat is going to dictate where this grip falls. So don't worry if you add too much epoxy up here or if you cover up a mark you've made. I am then going to take, and I'm going to set it on a hard surface, and I'm going to take the grip and I'm going to slide it down, and we're going to spin the grip as it's coming down. You can see it's just wanting to fall. We're going to give it just a bunch of turns, and that's just coating the inside. Before I slide the grip onto the top of the reel seat, I'm going to pick it up and lay it on its side. And I'm going to make sure there's not too much epoxy on the inside. If there is too much epoxy, and I have added too much epoxy before I've slid this down, it's going to create a mess. So I'm going to try to just estimate, okay, I have just a little epoxy in there, and I'm going to go ahead and finish sliding it down, turning it, and you will get some epoxy creeping out. If it starts to look like a little bit of too much of epoxy, you can back the grip off of it, and you can take a clean popsicle stick or mixing stick. You can scrape a little off here, scrape a little off here, slide the grip up, and again, just kind of work your epoxy down. Do not move too fast. You have plenty of working time on this epoxy. We just removed a little epoxy out of the handle section, and now it's going to slide nicely on top of the reel seat. And from there, we always, it's a rod builder's trick. You've got to keep paper towels and rubbing alcohol handy at all times when you're working with epoxy. So I'm going to take a paper towel, and I'm going to add a little rubbing alcohol here, and I'm just going to do kind of an initial cleanup just to make sure that we don't have too much epoxy getting into areas that we don't want it into. So that looks pretty clean. You'll notice the cork kind of has a wet look. The rubbing alcohol makes it look like that. It'll evaporate right off, but that just shows that you've cleaned it nicely. Now everything I have pushed together properly. The cork is bottomed out on the top here of this reel seat on the hood. I am then going to stand up my rod blank. Take a little bit more epoxy. If you didn't add epoxy above your grip before, you can add it now. I'm just going to go around the rod blank. Very, very thin coat, because now we're just going to add our winding check. Winding check is just this rubber winding check, and we're going to slide it down. If you have too much epoxy, a trick you can do is just use a mixing stick to slide this down. And all that does is it just keeps the excess epoxy, when it oozes out like that, just keeps it off of your hands. So then we just come back with our trusty paper towel and our rubbing alcohol, and we wipe it clean. And there you have it. There is your handle section complete. Once we have everything glued up, it's where we want it. We've done a final cleanup with the rubbing alcohol and the paper towels to get all of the excess epoxy off of this nice cork handle section. I'm going to take and add just a little assurance to make sure that nothing moves out of place. I'm going to take my masking tape that we used for our tape arbors. I'm going to pull a pretty good section out. And I'm going to place it alongside the cork grip, go under the reel seat, and I'm just going to create kind of a little brace here. Pull it tight, and then make sure the masking tape is pressed down. What this is going to do is, as your two-part epoxy expands, it generates heat and it cures. We just do not want the reel seat and the grip to force apart, because there's, we reamed it properly. We have fitted tape arbors under here, so there's not a whole lot of room for things to move. So we just want to make sure that this great reel seat and cork grip do not move while they're curing. So I'm going to take this, set it aside on my workbench, let it cure before I move on to the next step, which is guide prep and spacing.